All right, everybody. We're going to get started here. We got pizza going in the room and everybody gathered. So hopefully those online can hear. If you can't, please send a message and we'll do our best to work on the audio. I'm Brian Scheffler. I'm a senior manager here at ITA Group. We're excited to host the .NET user group again, and we're excited to share a story of one of our development teams and their journey with AI tools and AI development. Before I kick it over to them, did just want to give a reminder to stick around after the meeting. We do have a JetBrains license to give away, so one lucky winner will be walking out of here with that. And with that, I'll just get started. So we've got Juliana Jones and Mike Glazebrook here to talk about their journey with AI. So I'll welcome them and let them get started.
All right, can we both hit?
I
There we
think
go.
so.
Yeah, perfect. All right, well, welcome. My name is Juliana Jones. I am a senior front-end developer and manager of front-end development here at ITA Group. Been here for 10, going on 11 years. And yeah, it's been a journey this whole time. It's been good.
I'm Mike Glazebrook. I'm also a senior front-end developer. Juliana's my manager. We work very closely day in and day out. I've been at ITA Group for going on 6 years in the fall. So I'm excited to share with you guys what we've been doing, and we'll just kind of get going.
Yeah. All right. So let's do a show of hands, fingers, I guess. From let's say 1 to 5, where we kind of feel on the scale of whether or not if you're a 1, closer to the fear side when it comes to using AI, 5 being more super excited, ready to go, and 3 kind of being somewhere in the middle, maybe both fearful, both excited. Just want to kind of get a gauge of like where people are at.
Yeah, feel free to answer in the chat too.
Yes. All right, we got a 10. Okay, so
So in the
some
room,
3s,
kind of all over the board.
the middle, some 4s, and some 10s on the chat. Online. Okay.
Okay, so that's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I would say for me, and I can only speak for myself. Probably a few months ago, I was pretty fearful of AI and potentially what it could do to my career. I would say like probably not all that fear is gone, but I think from our partnership with Lean Techniques and what I've been able to learn over that time and my continued growth after that, I'm really excited with how that's kind of changed my career and where we can use some of those skills to be even better developers. Um, anything?
Yeah, I would say kind of much the same. I would echo much of what Mike was saying. I would say now I'm definitely leaning more to that excitement side, having understood a bit more about how this can change. Yes, it definitely changes what we do and how we approach our work. But there's still so much to gain in this, and it just kind of shifts things, but not necessarily completely eradicates it. And so, yeah.
Yep. So we're just going to kind of go through our journey of what we did over those 7 weeks with Lean Techniques and how we used AI and how we learned some new things and where we're at now today. There we go.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start with some of the fields, just kind of naming them. That first one being AI will write code that we can't trust. That was definitely a big fear. Like, how do I know that it's writing code that's secure? It's not gonna inject some things in there that is gonna, put our company at risk. Ultimately, we still are responsible for what we put out there. But if AI is writing some things and I'm trusting more on it, I need to make sure that it's going to be doing the right things.
And I think we've all kind of seen that AI can do that too. A lot of like terms like vibe coding come out, and that's you might have code that technically works and might look okay, but behind the scenes it can be a real mess, right? So yeah, the next thing is we're worried that our skills would atrophy. I think as we go through these slides we'll probably touch on how we're feeling about these things, so I'm not going to go into depth about them.
Yeah.
right now. But
Next one, it's going to make us obsolete. That's definitely was a big one on the list. How does this change things? What is our role then going to be when it comes to development if we're leaning on AI to actually write the code? Where does that shift us to, or does that shift us out? So yeah.
becoming a dependent on AI to write code, worried about that. Like, what happens if we've written all this code with AI and then Claude goes down, or I don't know, maybe it gets too expensive for us to buy the licensing that we want or something. Are we all of a sudden unable to understand our own code or make changes? That was a fear.
And just overall, is it mostly hype? We were using Copilot in our IDE, and prompting it there, but why the shift to Claude? What changes with that? So, yeah, before we had AI in the IDE using Copilot, but we didn't have a full workflow with AI.
So lean techniques came in. Our company decided that we needed to ramp up our AI knowledge and workflows. And I didn't know it at the time, but now I know that that was absolutely the right call. We met with Scott and Corey at Lean Techniques, and I pretty immediately knew that it was going to be a good partnership. They're just really smart guys, and they know their stuff. And the one thing that I think got us really excited immediately was that there was no discussion of like vibe coding things. It was all AI assisted development and how we could just from the very beginning use AI to move at a very fast pace, but also uh, you know produce like very, very good results. So in the beginning, we met about our project scope, which during the whole 7 weeks, our goal is to build demo sites that we could demo to our clients, and then also learn like a lot about AI in the process. So we met with these guys about our project scope. That was the first thing that we did.
Yes, and it was definitely a large project that we were trying to take on. So we kept trying to narrow it down, like what's the minimal viable product. And with 4 developers joining us from Lean Techniques, as well as Mike and myself, we got to work, defined or had the definition of the architecture that we wanted to follow, went through and decided on our libraries. What do we want to use? Was it React? Was it, Next.js? What exactly did we want to use in there? And then also discuss how do we want to host it? How do we want to deploy it? Some of those things. You want to read about that ones?
Yeah. Early on, we had discussed how we were using Copilot for our AI tooling, and it was suggested that we should switch over to Claude Code. It was pretty apparent that the industry thought that Claude Code was like the highest standard for writing code. And then I would say once we got in there and started learning things, that we also could agree that there's a lot of good results. We were getting really good results with the code, and then with like the specific guardrails that we set up, which we can go into as we continue. We initially did some AI training with Corey and Scott, just to like go over what our current level of knowledge was, and then we just kind of started diving right into like where we could learn about Claude Code and start coding our platform that we were building. And then, yeah, the last bullet is we just kind of started, we defined all these things and our guardrails, and then we just kind of jumped in and started building our demo platform.
All right, so what started to shift our mindset? Um, we've heard of all these different things, but like to try to really understand all of them and put them all into place was probably one of our biggest challenges, really figuring out where to start and what we needed. So Agents MD, of course, we know we need that. But what we were learning a bit more is like what should go in there. We didn't want to create a whole lot of bloat, and we want to be very specific as what we were putting in there versus what we were putting in, let's say, skills. But before that, we were also talking about code quality, end-to-end test, unit tests, spell checking, making sure that dead code was being removed and that our code was being formatted. So, we regardless of whether or not Mike was prompting or I was prompting, anyone on the team was prompting, that the formatting would stay consistent. Linting, of course. And this was being done on every change. We also implemented GitHub for code reviews. Anytime we were doing pull requests, we were using GitHub, of course, for our releases here. And then basically we'd put in a pull request and we'd have Copilot review it. And then we'd go back to Claude and say, hey, Claude, go look at what Copilot did. Double check it, get those two talking. And then, of course, we would be the human in the loop, making sure that we felt good about where it went and what it did. And then skills, definitely had a lot of fun creating some skills that were shareable amongst our team. Of course, we can create them for ourselves, but there was a really fun one, Grill Me, which we pretty much just asked AI, hey, poke holes in the logic, poke holes in what we're prompting, ask us some really good questions to make sure that we're on track and we really thought through things so that we could come up with the best result.
Yeah, I think with like skills and MCP servers, we started seeing a lot more of the power that we could do with these different tools. That these are just things that we didn't really know how to use before. So just being given a little bit of a point in the right direction went a long way. And we started building our own skills. We have multiple out there for the reusable tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis. I have one that like clears and reset caches when I switch branches, for instance. We have a handful that we use though. MCP servers, this was one thing that like really was powerful and cool to get started using. We were able to connect Claude Code to both Jira and then GitHub so that they were all talking together. And so, during a planning step, we could actually ask it to go look at the Jira story and kind of start there. And then we would use our skill, our Grill Me skill, to have Claude ask us a whole bunch of questions that we might have forgotten to include in the planning step. And then, we would do our human review of that and ask Claude to start coding. The other really cool thing that Claude has, and I don't. This isn't supposed to be like a Claude sales pitch, but it is what we've been in and out of for every day since these guys came on. So I guess it's probably going to sound that way. The /insights skill in Claude, it actually shows us how we're using Claude and what we can do to use Claude more efficiently. It'll make suggestions of things that we can add to our settings and whatnot, so that if we have something that's less efficient going on regularly, we can add a setting to kind of circumvent that, or that's just one example. This is kind of funny. The one kind of thing that I've been telling people around the office is like one of the dumbest but like best things that these guys taught us was just to kind of follow certain people on X. And that's kind of where I personally feel like there's a lot of value there, because you just immediately know like the next thing that's coming out. Like when Opus 4.7 hit, I knew in 30 seconds just from following some of these people on Twitter. Boris Cherny is a big one, but really you can follow anybody that like works at like the big AI companies, and you'll thank yourself for doing that. I hadn't used Twitter in probably 10 years and restarted my account, and now it's the floodgates are open. I get a notification on my watch, and then I check my phone, and I know everything that's going on. So
all right, so AI proposes and then automation verifies. So we start when thinking about tackling a new story, a new feature. If it's a larger feature, we typically put AI into plan mode. The reason we do this is so we have that back and forth. So we truly are not just giving it a green light and saying go. We actually want to make sure we're double checking what's it's thinking, making sure that we haven't been vague in different areas. So we start with that plan mode and review that. Then we get to asking it, hey, go ahead and write that code. Go ahead and put everything together in the way that we've stepped out. And then also once it's done writing the code, that's where we have those checks where we're talking about the spell checkers, the alignment and kind of code cleanup. It also runs tests um, after each one of those. Before we even get to pushing out a pull request, we make sure that it runs all of those.
Yeah, I'd really say that like a lot of the power that we have, especially in, well, I can only speak for our own project, but I could say I think that this is kind of would go for anything, is just like the different toolings that you can point AI at to, like for these guardrails, we're using like a handful of different libraries. NIP is a big one where it'll actually check on every PR for dead code. And if it finds dead code, it'll fail in GitHub and not go onto our CI, and we'll have to fix those things. So, that really cuts down on like hallucinations and like duplicated code, things like that. Yeah, so then like the next thing here we have is our PR reviews. We did multiple things with that. We had GitHub checking them. We would also, I mean, there's a skill in Claude that we would run regularly to kind of probably do that before we pushed it up to GitHub if we remembered. And if not, we can always do that out of order. And then I actually built a skill that was kind of based off of a paid skill that Claude has called Ultra Review. And you can actually send with that skill like 6 or 7 subagents to go in and do like a security review, a UI review, like 6 different things that I can't remember what all of them are right now. It's pretty token heavy, so I don't use that one on every pull request, but I mean, we just have multiple different checks in place that we actually didn't have before. It was all a human review, which is good. And we still have that human review step. That's like the last step that we go through to make sure that everything makes sense. And at the very end, the human has to approve that, and we have to own the code at the end of the day. So
just going through kind of our process again, I don't know if we mentioned, but this is the 7-week engagement. So that first week was kind of us getting a plan together as a team. We were pulling, multiple developers from different companies together to really understand what is our goal, what's our aim. Also during that time, that's when we did a lot of our setup work. So setting those agents, MDs, the settings JSON, adding those guardrails, deciding what we wanted to use for our tooling. Week 2, we started with scaffolding, like what, based on our design, what did we need to put in place foundationally to support the rest of it? Decided on our design system and started creating some components that our users could use to build these websites. We also, of course, set up test coverage early to make sure that tests were being written as we were going, and we gave it, I think, a goal of like 90 to 95% test coverage early
on. We added in multi-tenancy. I think we actually added that in earlier, but the ability to switch between tenants, that probably came in at around week 4. And we had like continued infrastructure that we were setting up throughout that time. We were working on multiple things at the same time. Scott was a big help with a lot of that. Huge. There were a lot of trails blazed with that. And so that was a big help. So we were able to configure and set up new demos more quickly by around week 5, and then polishing and asking for like designs from our design team, and really making it look more complete by around week 6. And then we're continuing to iterate on it, but we started that process at probably around week 7, and then yeah, like I said, we're just kind of continuing to iterate. We were doing that all day today.
One more thing I did want to add there with polish, we also did implement checks for accessibility. That was one thing that anytime it was like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to write? It typically was like, get the feature out, then circle back around to make sure it's accessible. But we're doing that along the way, things that we didn't necessarily always have time to do in the initial build phase. It's all being wrapped into it. So that was a big win, as well as, of course, that the test coverage. That just a lot of times would just kind of fall to the wayside. We need to go back and do that later. It's happening as we are writing these features.
So yeah, I mean, our minds started becoming changed at this point because we were moving at an incredibly fast pace, but we also felt really good about the code that we were generating and writing. And I actually asked Claude to help me create some slides for this presentation with the /insights skill. So we know over that 7 weeks, we had around 279 PRs merged. We had over 117,000 lines of code written and a 90% approval of the AI code. So I think that one is our GitHub checks. We were approving a lot of the checks or the comments that Copilot was making in our code. We saw that they really were issues that it was finding, and we were approving those around 90%. But there still was that 10% that we thought might have been a hallucination or something that we didn't actually want to change. So it was still important to be in there looking at that. 90% code coverage, which is just like unheard of. We didn't have nearly that before with our other products. In fact, we had some broken systems. So this is like an unprecedented change. And then we were working in parallel, and we started doing that more and more often as we were going through this process, and even working in parallel with ourselves at times, cloning the repo down twice or starting to use work trees and working in parallel. So, and then, we had 4 engineers in 7 weeks to do this. Yeah.
So from the beginning, this was a greenfield project. We started, pretty much with just our knowledge of what we wanted to build. But we did have that opportunity to really start from scratch on this, which was wonderful because we had the knowledge that we were bringing of other systems that we had used before. And we're like, we know what we want to do. We know how we want to go about it. Now we just need to go ahead and utilize AI as an assistant to help us get there faster. So one code base, we decided on multi-tenant from the beginning. We wanted to make sure that data was isolated. We thought about our theming and the content and making sure that the flows were configurable. And then the ultimate goal was just, can we stand up demos quickly? Previously, we were making copies of our code and heavily customizing them. And in this case, we looked at what are some of those reusable pieces? How can we make that multi-tenant to give a solid presentation of our capabilities here at ITA to our customers? And so that was kind of a main goal. And then, of course, making sure that it did have some good security in place and test coverage to make sure we're not breaking things as we go.
And where could it go? From the beginning of this project, we felt like we didn't want to create a demo that couldn't be productized. Like, why would we demo something that we couldn't actually build? So we built this in a way that it could turn into, being a live product someday. So we have a multi-tenant architecture that's already in place. We have configurations already in place that we could use in production. It's a small gap to jump from what we've built for just setting up demos to potentially building something for one of our clients. We're just kind of continuing to build on that. So now Lean Techniques has left our group. We actually have them around with some other teams right now, but since they've left, like, we didn't stop learning with AI. Like, the one thing that is really cool about where we were able to get to is that it opened us up to think about things differently. So and just like learning more about like what the different tools can do. So I think like around the time they were leaving, I started exploring working in different like work trees in Claude Desktop. It's you can spin up a new session really easily, and it's just really automatic how it'll create a new work tree, or kind of like a branch off of main, and it'll do that like just very quickly. And you can work on you can move pretty quickly that way. You can work on 4 or 5 different things at the same time if you need to. And we have found ourselves in a situation where we needed to move that fast because we've been asked to provide these demos in a very short amount of time, as you can tell from like a 6-week or 7-week time frame. And when I started using work trees, I actually, for the first time, hit my session limit in Claude, which was like a badge of honor. We're starting to explore more things with that we can do, like setting up routines on a schedule. My session limit resets. We can run a security review on a Saturday or something, and that doesn't affect my session limit. So we could set up all sorts of different routines that would run on a schedule. If we don't want to tell Claude necessarily to do some like smaller types of work, we can set up issues in, I haven't done this, but we could set up issues in GitHub and have a routine, check those issues and do all the work that we don't want to do. And we just human review the PR when it's all said and done. And maybe we have to tweak what it's done, but it's done a lot of the heavy lifting beforehand. Just yesterday, I realized if I launched a work tree from Claude in like cloud mode, it goes between all my different devices. So I can literally be walking outside in the courtyard and coding from my phone. So that was a kind of a cool thing that I stumbled upon yesterday. I took a few screenshots of just like the workflow that we've been kind of going through. This is a story that I recently worked on, and we've kind of gone over all of this, so I'm not going to go into like a ton of detail, but we go from Jira story to plan mode with the grill me skill and having Claude code it. Human reviews and tweaking all along the way if needed. Obviously if we can get it done in one shot, that's the best case scenario. This is a screenshot.
Goal.
Yeah.
And we one-shot it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's like another badge of honor. If we can give Claude a prompt and like a plan that's specific enough that we don't have to make changes, that's like a real like badge of honor. So yeah, this is the grill me skill, just asking me a question. It would go through as many questions as it thought, if I left out a bunch of details, there would be like a lot of questions. And then this is kind of what our GitHub would look like after, we pushed a PR up. And you can see that Copilot came in and has found something, and I went back through with Claude and resolved that thing because I thought it was inaccurate. It was something that actually needed to be changed. And you can see our 3 different checks in GitHub that run every single time, and those are read a lot. We have to go back and make those pass a lot. So that makes me feel a lot better about the quality of the code that we're getting out there and like all the tests that we're getting out there. I wrote down the skill that we're using, PR review comments. I think Scott wrote that one, but it'll actually use that MCP server to go out and check all the GitHub comments and try to verify whether they're valid comments or not. That's with Claude. And then we, as the human in the loop, we decide whether or not Claude was right about that and whether or not we should fix them.
Yeah. So going back to those first few questions that we had that were top of mind, AI will write code we can't trust. So on the flip side, once we got into the flow, we realized, hey, 90% plus code coverage, that's huge. We've never been at that point before. Multi-agent workflows allowed us to really get more done and more features kind of pushed out because we were working on them simultaneously. And of course, those human reviews, making sure that we are in the know, not just as the individual prompting and checking the code, but also our teammates are going and taking a look as well. Yes, it slows things down a little bit further, but at this point, that was what was necessary to make sure that we felt like, okay, we are doing our due diligence to make sure we're not pushing anything out there that we're like, ooh, that really went off the rails. And so we're always making sure to double check where everything is.
Yeah. The concern about our skills, atrophy, will atrophy. I think our skills are just changing. And I think it opens up the opportunity to learn a lot more. This is the first Next.js project we worked on. Claude helped us do a lot of that. We have experience in TypeScript and other languages that are in that, but I think AI helps us open up new doors to like learn new things, and we can move really quickly. And then with like the different guardrails we have in place, I don't think that our skills atrophy. I think they're just changing.
Yeah, there was something that I was thinking through. I'm like, what I love about my job. I love problem solving. I love getting in there and like finding a problem and fixing it, right? And so I was kind of worried that that was going to go away. Well, I'm no longer, typing and making the change manually. But what I'm actually finding is I'm solving a lot more problems because I'm able to direct AI and what it needs to do, going through and double checking it, that I'm able to focus in multiple different areas and solve more problems in the shorter time frame. So, um, however, I would definitely say it's very much us directing AI. It's not vibe coding. It's not, hey, we're writing something and the AI is just going to go off and do it and we trust it, right? We have the skills. The skills did not change internally as far as our knowledge of code. We still have to go and make sure, did it do the right thing? I mean, there's definitely times where I've not given enough detail. AI has gone off on a tangent and I'm like, ooh, nope. And I just throw it away. Because I didn't give enough direction and it wasn't right. But the way I know that is because, of course, I have that understanding of what was I actually trying to obtain, how to go about it, what should the structure of the code be that makes sure that I'm in the know, our team's in the know, that it's not just kind of writing code that we don't understand or don't fully agree with.
Yeah, that kind of covers the hallucination step, I would think.
Yeah.
Will it make us obsolete? I don't think so. I think, everybody's gotten an opinion on that. In theory, like we're all just becoming AI experts and coding with AI. And that's not going to replace junior developers, in my opinion, either, because if we don't have junior developers, who are going to become senior developers someday? So I think it's just another area where our careers are changing, and we shouldn't be afraid of that, and we should lean into it.
Yeah, there's one thing I was thinking. I was like, okay, well, I learned in school, right? How to do math, long division, things like that, right? But it doesn't stop me from using a calculator that can do it a lot faster. I still have to have that understanding of what is the equation, what do I need to put in, but the calculator then goes and I can type those numbers in and it just goes through it quicker. It didn't replace that understanding of that skill. I still needed to understand what do I even want it to do, and that's kind of how I see this on a larger scale.
Yeah, and we'll become dependent on a black box or AI. I don't think so. I mean, we define that box. If for some reason we don't have Claude available, we have other tools available. And at the end of the day, we're still developers and we can still write code. So I don't think that's a problem. And then is it mostly hype? I don't know if people really feel that way. There's probably people out there that do, but I think through this process, I've been convinced that we can create a lot of really good code in a fairly short amount of time that we approved with a human set of eyes all along the way.
Yeah.
And we already asked you guys this at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
So that was the last slide. So maybe we open it up to
we can
questions.
ask those questions. Yeah. Questions about anything we've said, or if you want to answer any of those questions we have on screen, like what's your fear? Like we want to just really have a good discussion, kind of around your experiences, or have you already moved through this, from fear to flow? Are you still kind of in the middle? What would help you maybe get a little further on the flow side? Okay. Yeah.
Semi-related question. For the 90% code coverage, is Claude writing the tests?
Yes,
So Claude is agreeing with Claude.
correct. And that's
Okay.
where we have Copilot coming in as
Uh,
well to double check. But that's why we have two of them going at the same time.
Yeah.
And then also reviewing the
Yeah.
test on our
And,
end.
yep, and we're running the code too. So every PR, we should be running the code and making sure that it's at least functioning the way that we intend it to be. And then, the tests are written around that code that's also functioning. So, and like, when we make changes, we see the code fail in ways that it should fail because of the changes that we've made. So I have a certain trust level there with that.
Oh, hello, yes.
I believe you guys more of a doctor shop.
Correct.
And you guys do for ID, visual code or visual studio for your development. My question is, with Copilot having a Claude as one of LLMs under the hood, you have a Copilot agent, which is integrated beautifully into your Visual Studio ID. Copilot has different LLMs you can choose from, whichever you pick and choose from. What made you to lean towards Claude and going out of Visual Studio to an IDE or a Claude code? What was the reason you pushed you towards? What was the rationale? What was the research kind?
And we probably should repeat the questions just in case anyone online wasn't able to hear. Basically, I would say the question was, we're using Copilot, and Copilot has that ability to use Claude kind of under the hood. Why then would we switch to go to using Claude directly? Does that correctly summarize? Yeah, okay.
Let's add one more point to it.
Yeah.
And the licensing model for Copilot, GitHub Copilot is standard. They don't care how much tokens you burn. But in Claude, you're going to be charged based on how many tokens you're burning. In organization I currently work for, we have both it's Java shop and a .NET shop. For .NET world, we use Copilot because it's less expensive, because we don't burn so much of tokens. For the Java world, we just simply use Claude because it's beautiful. It goes along with Java shop. So what was the rationale behind going out of ID, Visual Studio ID, into a whole other CLI? Because being a visual developer, I don't like this colorful layout. Firstly, me, I don't like colorful my mainframe prompts to put in some commands and doing it. So what was actually?
I think part of the answer to that is we still have both available to us, and I think your example of using Claude for JavaScript is a good example of like why we chose to use Claude for front-end coding. We partnered with Lean Techniques, and early on, like I don't know if we would have been able to answer that question, but we did have some help, and we had Scott and Corey telling us that we could get probably some better results with Claude Code. That was one thing. Also, Claude seems to be ahead of the curve on some things. Like I know GitHub Copilot doesn't have like this built-in work tree system yet. They're working on it, but Claude already has that, and I can use that, and I use it every single day, and it helps me to go like really quickly. I know there's probably workarounds for that, but that's something that Claude has. And we've noticed even just using Claude for like a couple of months that's been pretty standard. At least that's the way that I guess that's my opinion, is that Claude seems to come out with something and then like Copilot will come out with it like 2 or 3 weeks later. So we're just like, it feels a little bit more cutting edge to me to have that.
Yeah. And to your point,
Means.
yes, Claude has its own, like Windows version or app, right?
Yeah.
But we can also use them command line. That's actually what we do is we use the command line version.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Scott, for helping us kind of understand that there were those differences. And so we actually use it right within Visual Studio Code, but then also we can use it externally if we wanted to as well. So yeah.
When I hit my session limit, I switch back over to Copilot. So
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Copilot, I do the same.
Use them both.
Firstly, testing part of it, the automated testing part of it, Claude is much wonderful than. Claude does really fantastic use cases and how it does automated test. That's probably my way to go to Claude, my personal thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd agree with
there's
you.
probably, since we do have both available to us, that just made me think like, and I've had this thought before, but I haven't actually put it into practice, but you probably could break up your workflows a little bit, do some of the harder tasks in Claude, and then maybe do some code reviews with Copilot and try, multiple different models to do it. That would be a good use case, I would think.
Yeah, for us over the course of the 7 weeks, it was just a lot of learning all at once. So we kind of stuck to, oh, and we had an end result we had to meet while learning, which kind of felt like it was difficult to try to balance both, but we got it done. But yeah, so there's a lot more that we need to explore and try out and test out. But I think that's the biggest thing that before we really didn't know where to really get started because there's so much information out there. And so this really helped to have lean techniques worked into our team, moving, actually utilizing what we're learning towards a project. And that was the biggest thing, is that hands-on learning was huge. Because we've been to, different talks and things like that before, and they're like, oh, use this, do that. But how do I get started exactly? Where should I put that? How should I be thinking about this? And that's where, the activation with like lean techniques really helped us to now put it into practical use. So that we can learn as we went.
You're kind of hitting on something that I feel like we're starting to experience here at ITA Group. We've been really fortunate to have a lot of people cycle with us and to try that tool, try this application, try this other tool over here. And I feel like we've almost gotten to a place where we have too many tools now, to where it's like, oh, can I do this in this tool, and can I do this in this tool? Yes, you probably can, but I only know how to do it here or whatever. So like, I feel like at a certain point, we're almost going to have to maybe start to make a decision to start pruning some tools back so that we can really become experts in one tool set rather than kind of generalists across all of the different tool sets that are available to us. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we figure out that problem here.
Yeah, it is a real problem too, because like, although we feel like Claude Code is ahead right now, Copilot could be ahead in 3 weeks. I mean, that's how fast everything moves. So,
Yeah, just over the course of the 7 weeks, what changed was amazing.
We walked in and we're like, we're gonna use ChatGPT, and like, whoa. Don't just limit your team to one level. Make sure you provide them all the options and because it moves so quickly. And now, I'm not gonna say we're all finding our little niches, but you're getting more comfortable with the tools that you use right now. So I'm starting to see some of the, I'm not gonna say things that will change in a couple months, but it's like, oh, I'm better with this tool, I'm better with this tool. So we're talking about, yeah, we need to consolidate because maybe I don't need 4 different licenses to different things, but I need these two, or I think I need, when you need those two.
Yep.
It'll be interesting. How
Yeah.
try to read that. Yeah.
we have a question.
Take away all of
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat. This was new code. The question is, are we looking at pushing this model to existing code bases, and how would it change our answers? I think we would look to add it to code bases. We had a product that we built before, AI really ramped up, the one that we've been working on for years. I think we would look to update that and maybe convert things. And I think actually Claude might have a skill for that, or a plugin, but I haven't used it yet, so I can't really review that process. But I do think that this would translate well. It's it's Angular. It has some Razor code in it, and then a .NET backend. But
We did use it to convert. There was a library of UI elements that we had that was in Angular, and we needed it in the new code base. And so, yeah, Mike took it and said, hey, can you convert that over to React? And we were able to pull it in. It plugged everything in where it needed to go. So that was one usage of converting it. But we also had other teams that also they had their own AI kind of activations and their projects. And some of them were assigned to work on code where they were doing more of an update versus a full rewrite of something new. And I've heard those went really well. We kind of had a gathering a few weeks back where we kind of discussed and everyone kind of presented high level what they were able to do. And I think across the board, it was just amazing to see
Mhm.
how many different developers were able to utilize these tools well and felt a lot better about using them.
Yeah, I think it's another like it's a great question. Like I think it's another area where it really illustrates where humans are still needed. Because we have to make that decision. I mean, we can use AI to write the code, but I mean, we have to decide, are we going to do a rewrite of this code base, or are we going to try to just update it? Those decisions AI can't do yet. And I don't know if they ever will really be able to make all those decisions. We'll see.
Any other questions in the room?
So like, how do you deal with like the unpredictable license costs, but like the change up from like GitHub Copilot, you already used to that.
Yeah, that's a real risk.
Yep.
Or like, what if Claude gets really expensive and we can't, afford Opus 4.7 or something? I think we just have to stay nimble and use the tools that are available to us. We probably, we might not do GitHub reviews forever if they become, too pricey or something, but we have other tools available to us to help us do reviews. And then we always have our human, skills to lean on too. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those we can't plan for everything, right? But as we kind of evaluate it as it comes. And so, there's us evaluating it from the standpoint of using it, and we definitely have others in the company who are really more the money conscious that are like, okay, what can we do? And I think we'll just have to have that discussion as it comes and pivot and change and find that new workflow that works.
I think there's some about, you know, being good stewards of the tools that you're given to, right? Like, it's pretty easy to, in Claude, throw it on Opus 4.7 and run every single task through Opus 4.7. Do you need Opus 4.7 to do every single task? No, you don't. And, so it's kind of like, a sledgehammer, sometimes you need a hammer. So, there's auto modes in there, kind of being smart. I think goes a long way.
I think that's one thing I like better about Copilot is auto mode in Copilot. They don't really have that. You have to kind of manually switch that in Claude. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're starting to learn about that, to your point, with all the changes coming up of like, okay, how can we right size go over what we and then I think it's on us a little bit too as developers to help tell the story of why these tools are important to us, why we need them. So I think, you look at some of the metrics you talk about, whether it's velocity or quality improvement, things like that, justifying those things go a long way to helping to make sure that budget stays.
Yeah. Do you have questions online?
I know Scott just answered
Oh.
the other one, I think. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the room?
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.